You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante with Something Rather Than Nothing, and have a guest here, Amy Guidry, who, I just adore her paintings, and really excited to be able to chat with you, Amy, welcoming you from Louisiana. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Ken. I'm really honored to be here.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate your time. Amy, were you an artist when you were born?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty much destined to be. I've been drawing and, painting to some extent ever since I could remember. Obviously my talent wasn't what it is now, but I was always creating. It had to be before I was even in kindergarten, and I come from a family of artists, and so that was something that just I had this worldview that everyone would draw and create, and so I didn't understand anything otherwise. And my mom could draw. She would do drawings for my room sometimes, and my brother, he's a bit younger than I am, but he eventually started to draw. He wasn't into it as much as I was, and I didn't understand that. I would kind of force him to draw even though he didn't want to. But we have a lot of artists and writers in the family. I'd done my ancestry, and I knew that my grandfather would write just recreationally, but his father was a newspaper editor and journalist, as was his father. And, he had also written a book that would have been my great-great-grandfather, Frank Norcross. He wrote a book about shoes, like shoemaking, and it was called The Swamps of New York. But then, also on my grandfather's side, my cousin Eleanor Norcross, I would say she's kind of famous, but it's more like a under the radar kind of fame. But she was friends with Mary Cassatt. She lived in Paris. She painted, but her father didn't think that it was appropriate for women to be business people, and so he wanted her to just paint. And he would support her to do that, but he didn't think that she should get into selling her work. And then most people don't know this, but Emily Dickinson is apparently my cousin as well. It's just in my blood, like I said, it's something that I've always done ever since I was little, and it was all I ever knew how to do. And it just, it took up all my time. That's all I did. I would draw so much that I would go through like an entire package of typing paper in a very short period of time. And my mom, she said that she threw out so much stuff because, I'd create so much and she couldn't store it all. But yeah, that was my childhood right there, So
yeah.
yes, I was definitely born an artist.
Yeah, no, I read a little bit about that background, and I'm originally from Rhode Island, so I noticed that there was some with Eleanor up in outside of Boston and Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and of course Emily Dickinson. I learned more about her when I went to the University of Massachusetts in Amherst.
Oh, okay.
Which was her town, Amherst, and just incredible poet.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to ask you, Amy, and this has to do with your art and your
Mm-hmm.
painting. I and I'm not going to try to describe your painting. It's always a trouble, like with audio. But what I love are it's a fantastic world of animals in nature, and there's juxtaposition, and there's this kind of these hybrid components to it. Oh, that sounds blah. What I wanted to ask you, Amy, is what do you think your art is, and what do other people think your art is?
Interesting question. I actually think that the answer is pretty similar because just from what I hear from other people when they view my art, they really do get it. And some of them can actually hit the nail on the head. But obviously, like you said, my art is very nature oriented, and it always has been. Again, back when I was little, and it's a surrealist approach to the issues that are going on, that have been going on, but continue today with our environment, with animal welfare, with ecology and biodiversity. And, ultimately my goal is to educate people of these issues and to provide them with a visual that, you don't always get that when you read an article about, let's say, the decline of a population of certain birds. But I can provide sort of a through the looking glass visual, reflection of what's going on today. And, I remember hearing in an interview, I think it was with Terry Gross, and they were saying that, science fiction will present like this dystopian future that actually inspires people to want to do something to keep that from happening. And I feel like visual art can do the same thing. And, that's not to say that my work is all doom and gloom. It's just to raise awareness. And some paintings may just be more like portraits of animals. And like you said, they show some hybrid elements. You may see a human eye, or maybe there's a human torso combined with, another animal. And this just speaks to the connection that we have as human animals to the rest of the animal kingdom. And sorry, I think that in order for us to care about these things, we have to find that connection. I hate to sound narcissistic there, but I feel like humans care more about animals in the natural world when they can see themselves in it, and when we attribute more anthropomorphic qualities to animals, suddenly we relate to them better, and I think that just gives them more significance to us, and it makes us care, and it makes us want to keep them around and not let them go endangered or go extinct. So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do with my work. And like you said, it's kind of hard to convey audibly, and really, even if someone just asks me, I mean, I really don't have a good elevator pitch, so to speak. I usually just get a postcard out and show them a visual. But that being said, just to give people a visual, my work is very detail oriented. I tend to work on a smaller scale, although some of my pieces, I consider them medium size, but some might consider small, like an 8x10, for example. But they're very complex, usually very complex backgrounds. And whereas some artists, they may blur out things in the background, I tend to bring in as much detail as possible so that you're just completely immersed in this world. And I like for people to have to get a closer look, because it's crushing as an artist to see when people just walk by, and if they just notice something on the wall, but then they just kind of keep going. They may look at it for a second or two. I really love it when I can draw people in, because I feel like that gives them the opportunity to have this internal dialogue with the painting and really learn more about it. And it'll make them want to learn more as well, because I love it when people see a piece and I happen to be there and they ask me questions and we can really dive in, to learn more about it. And, hopefully I can leave them with something that inspires them. And, they walk away from that experience and it wasn't just that they went to a gallery or a museum. They actually learned something, and it inspired them to want to help polar bears, or, to learn to recycle more and reduce their waste output. All of these things to me feel like I did my job. If my painting can speak to people on that level, not just be a pretty thing to look at.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments around your art, and I personally appreciate the respect and dignity towards animals. I've been a vegan for 26 years, and
awesome.
Yeah, and which is more than half my life, and so I love when art disrupts or causes or creates that space for the consideration. And I know, and I see that in your art, and the ability to build empathy or simply wonder about
right.
what's out there. So let me ask you something, Amy. Does your art disrupts, but does art have to disrupt, or do you think it should disrupt?
Art doesn't have to disrupt per se, but I'll say this. It should make you feel something. Whether you love it or you hate it, it should make you feel something, because then it's done its job. If you feel absolutely nothing, then it's hotel art, So there are all kinds of types of art. There's so many genres of art, and I'm not going to say that an Alexander McQueen dress is the same as a Picasso. I'm sure some people may disagree with me there, but they're just different types of art. They have different purposes, but they both make you feel something. And there are those who hate Picasso, and there are those who love his work. And then the same could be said about Alexander McQueen's work. But either way, they're both art. It's not something that's just been mass produced. Whether it's a print that hangs in a hotel or just a T-shirt, in a a superstore. We won't mention names, but there's a difference. You feel something. There's emotion. It hones in on your personal experience, and that's going to be individual for everyone, obviously. But it's their experience, it's their reality, and it taps into something with them. And like I said, that could be good or bad, but either way, it's touched them in some way. It's elicited a response, and that's what art should do. Otherwise, it falls on deaf ears. It's art is supposed to say something, and you may not agree with it, but it should say something. It should have a message to it. Art is all about expressing ideas and communication. So, anything less than that, what's it really doing? What would its purpose be?
Yeah, and thank you. Amy, I wanted to ask a different question. Living up in the Pacific Northwest as I do, it's had a significant impact on the art I create, or simply being in Portland, being around a bunch of artists, expression, space, a lot of it. I've been to Louisiana. I love it. I haven't been all around the state, but when I was in New Orleans, it was I adored the unique American cultures. Like I don't think I could find that anywhere else, and it was so artistic.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot to it. Now I wanted to know if you could just convey, does the place where you live and reside, does it bring in unique elements to your art?
Yes and no. Obviously, I'm dealing with issues that affect the entire world, so there's that aspect. But um, I am, as you mentioned, the whole vegan thing. I've been a vegan for 22 years now, and I live in Louisiana, and this is, I mean, the state is known as Sportsman's Paradise. So,
Right, right.
there's that part that drives my concern for animals, and as a vegan, I mean, I really don't know many vegans here, so there's that. But I do see where people um, they, they put a lot of emphasis on food here, and that's great. But I think that we should be looking at more plant-based options, just from an ecological standpoint. Regardless of my feelings towards cute fuzzy animals, it's imperative right now that we live more sustainably, and we all have to do our part. So eating less meat would definitely help. And not that I want to get into propaganda here, but just realistically speaking, though, we do have to work towards a more sustainable future, and we can't just eat as much meat as we do. So that plays into my work, and I try to emphasize not just here, but on a world scale. What our consumption is doing concerning habitat loss, concerning rainforest destruction, and what that ultimately does concerning the sea level rise and global warming. So all of that is important, not just to Louisianians, but I did a piece called Pervasive, and it's got these pelicans whose wings are morphing into black smoke, and the whole background it's meant to look like the whole sky is on fire. Basically, a lot of rusty tones and just clouds of smoke, and then you see a line of fire along the water, and that was in response to the Gulf oil spill. I That's as local as my work has ever hit, but it's something that has become, hence the title, pervasive. It's hitting species from all over now, because as they migrate, these chemicals and toxins that have stayed in their bodies are now being handed down to their offspring, and that just spreads, so on and so forth as they migrate, and bring these toxins to others that were not anywhere near the spill. So that, of course, is something that still resonates with me. It's painful to know that we've made mistakes that still have an impact on our wildlife, and that's something that I'm trying to get people to think about and consider the ramifications of all of our actions. We want to do so many things that are convenient for ourselves, and make things bigger and better and faster. We want better technology, and we want everything now, and we don't think of the impact that has on our planet. We can't be so greedy. We can't have everything, and not in the way that it's being done now. Stuff that's made to be cheap and quick and easy. isn't necessarily the solution. Sometimes it has to be the more expensive, safer way to make something, produce something that doesn't pollute, that doesn't require, cutting down rainforests or killing endangered animals in order to get at it. Something that's more sustainable, that uses sustainable energy. Sometimes those things can be pricey at first, but it's well worth it to make that investment now, because we're definitely going to pay for it. I mean, we're paying for it now to an extent, but it's only going to get worse if we keep it up.
Yeah. And thank you on that too, because although I haven't got very far into it in the course of the podcast, environmental concerns are deep and important. And I recall even some of the artworks of Christopher St. John, who I've had as a guest, who used animals, and I don't want to say use, as material,
right?
Like of the pictures, and to create awareness. I wanted to mention some hard statistics, Amy, that I just plugged in on some of your points. With if you take you and I as vegans, we've been vegan for 48 years combined. I used the vegan calculator, and between us, we've saved 19.272 million gallons of water.
Wow.
We've saved 700,800 pounds of grain.
Wow.
We've saved 500,000 square feet of forest. This is me and you.
Yeah, that's amazing.
350,000 pounds of CO2 not produced, and 17,500 animals not consumed.
Wow.
So it's a resource somebody handed to me one time, the vegan calculator, as far as the material impacts of just saying I'm going to consume plants instead of animals. And I find when I plug that in, it's encouraging, because it's just a material way of saying, hey, that's not bad.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sometimes you need to see the numbers. It's easy to think about, as just this lofty ideal, but when you realize the impact that, not just one but two people have, I mean, that's incredible. Especially when, sometimes I hear people who say, vegans can't make a difference.
Well, those numbers,
I think that's proof in the pudding right there.
Well, I think just water. I mean, obviously, all those statistics are fantastic. Animals saved, all that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Just the question of water and efficiency. So, right. A different question for you, Amy. Conceptual. What or who made you who you are?
Who? That's a very complex question, because there's a lot to it. First off, something that I realized really not that long ago, I used to think that, because I've always done art, that's, that was the driving force, is that I just have to be creative because I love art. It's what I've always known and done. And, I used to equate it to, if you took my art away, that would be like taking away my oxygen. And it wasn't until that, not that long ago, that I realized that it's not really the art that makes me who I am. It's nature. Because, I touched on this before when I said that, I've always drawn animals, and it's from day one when I was born, my dog Juno, she was my life. And that dog was my best friend, like more so than any kid at school, because she was just loyal. She was incredibly sweet and kind, and she was a very quiet dog. But I don't know, she just had like this wise, all-knowing sort of energy about her. And I would hang out with my dog, and we would be out in the woods next door. We'd be out in the ditch. I'd be, checking out all the little tadpoles and minnows, and I'd befriend the dragonflies. I actually had one that was kind of trained. I would see him like every day until the winter came, and then sadly I didn't see him anymore.
Wait a
But
second, Amy. You trained a dragonfly.
yeah. Apparently, it's not that unique. I thought it was special, but apparently, if you're slow enough, you could just slide your finger up underneath them, and they'll just kind of hang out there. And I did this every day, and it became a ritual. And I kind of knew to find him on the porch swing, and he was like, "All right, you're cool. I know you now." I named him Oso. I have no idea where that name came from. I was a little kid.
I like it.
But Oso. So anyway, Oso and Juno were big inspiration for me. I always cared about nature, and I was always fascinated by it. And I was always drawing animals. And I guess I was around 10 that I had decided, because I had been reading a lot of animal books. I would check out animal books in the library all the time, and so I learned about clubbing seals for fur, and I knew that there were endangered animals, and I knew that some went extinct, and so I thought, I'm going to make a book, and I'm gonna include all the animals of the world. Didn't realize how many species there were. And I thought, I'm going to make people care about these animals. I'm going to make the most beautiful art, and they're going to love these animals as much as I do, and they're going to want to save them. And so that was my goal, just as a child. And it really isn't that different from today. I tell people this every now and then, because I just hope that, my work will touch them enough to make them care and make them want to do better, and, do better by nature. And I'm actually starting to forget your question now.
No.
Oh, what made me? So
that's a hazard of this show. I mean, if it's something rather than nothing, it's a hazard of this show, and it's okay. It's okay. We're just talking about who, like, specifically who or what made you who you are.
Yeah. So really, I think it was just nature that molded me to make me care about it so much, and that's been my focus all this time, even with my art. That's it's what gets me out of bed every day. I can't think of creating anything other than that. I mean, I have tons of ideas and tons of concepts that I want to cover with my work, and my work is more time consuming than I can possibly turn them out. But I have no shortage of ideas for what I want to paint, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Sadly, but this is just something that has always mattered to me. And I've always been kind of a driven person. I didn't have an easy childhood. That's probably about as specific as I'm going to get. But, it just kind of taught me to persevere. And, no one's ever been able to call me a quitter. And so I think that I'm the right person for this kind of job,
Yeah.
Because one, art is just a hard career anyway. You're going to face a lot of rejection, at first. I mean, it's going to be just one after another. So that takes a lot of drive and some inner strength. And, and then the other reason is because, nature needs someone who won't quit on it. And I certainly won't. I'm going to continue to talk about the importance of nature for as long as I live, because it's always mattered to me, and that's not going to go away. That won't ever change. It's just something that, like I said, I grew up with it. I grew up with animals from day one. It's all I've ever known. So that's my mission,
Yeah.
And that's what drives me, and that's what makes me who I am, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just just recently on the show, I've had a guest, Zoe Presley, did forest, forest bathing, forest, the concept of going into the forest or having a connection to nature that's kind of a more harmonious or mindful connection to it. It could even be as blunt as, going into the forest, walking through the forest, smelling what's there, seeing what's there, hearing those sounds. But also recently I did one with the oceans, with Elizabeth Beston in England, and just, connecting to what is around us, a little bit of space to notice it, or in your case, with your paintings, to put eyes or to put our ears to it. I see a very similar dynamic going on. Just notice. We're talking with Amy Guidry, a painter, artist based in Louisiana. Amy, I got the big question for you. Why is there something rather than nothing?
There's always going to be something rather than nothing, because even though we don't always see them, there are so many minute, infinitesimal cells and particles and organisms that are always creating something that it may take time for us to eventually notice it, but they're always creating, they're always evolving, and they're always shaping everything around us, and within us even, our own cells, they're always replicating and, unfortunately mutating, and sometimes that can go awry. But even our ecosystem, there's bacteria that are feeding plants, that are feeding insects, that are feeding birds, that are feeding mammals, and so on and so forth. And there are all these itty bitty little actions that are going on around us, and so even though you may not see them or hear them, they're always happening. They exist, and even at that, like I looked into some stuff, like Stephen Hawking said that even like in a vacuum state, there are virtual particles and there are space-time bubbles that will just spontaneously appear, and there's always going to be some kind of instability that will make these reactions occur. So there's always going to be something, there wouldn't be nothing. We wouldn't be having this conversation now, I guess, if there were nothing. None of this would happen. None of this would exist. There's always something, even though we can't explain exactly where that came from. There's always something. Like I said, they're happening all around us at any given moment, and we don't see them. We can't feel them, hear them, touch them, but they're there, and it ends up having a major impact, and bringing back home that relates to all of our actions today. Everything that we choose, to eat, to use, to toss out. All of these things have an impact, and even though we don't see it, eventually, it has this domino effect, and eventually we feel that, and hopefully we do something about it before it's too late.
Yeah, and I appreciate what you have to say, and I think one of the big things that I noticed with your works is that they immediately pull you in, and so that isn't easy to do as an artist. And I wanted to ask you another question, Amy, before getting into kind of letting the readers know where to find your listeners, where to find your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was very interested in your use of surrealism.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know of surrealism, or they think of Dali and things like that. But
Right.
there's a lot of complex notions of surrealism that the popular understanding doesn't get at. I was wondering if you could just explain how you use it, or how you think it's effective, or what surrealism is for you.
Mm-hmm. Well, initially when I started this series, I would sometimes look at elements from dreams, and also just like with free association exercises where I just kind of think of a concept and then just let my mind go and just whatever imagery would come to mind, which is usually just fragments of something. But I used to use all of these little hazy obscure bits of visual information and turn them into paintings and try to fit them into something bigger. And I do use that to an extent, but now I guess I rely more on a lot of just brainstorming and just writing things down. I look at a lot of news articles and I'll just write down facts and figures, kind of like what you were doing earlier. And I'll just take a concept like that and I'll just start writing down anything that has to do with it. It could be as simple as something like ice, water, melt,
Yeah.
And I'll just let it go from there. And I'll start thumbnail sketches, usually just a little something, not the entire idea worked out, but just kind of like the main subject, and I'll take it from there, and I might create like 50 thumbnail sketches around this same concept, and they may be just slight variants from each other, just because I want to include one other little tiny thing or one little tiny change to it. But that's how I approach my work. But surrealism is something that I've always been interested in, even as a kid. I just remember being struck by any kind of imagery that was, more fantastic and surreal, even whimsical. But, I was always drawn to Dali and Magritte and Kahlo, even Botticelli's Birth of Venus. That was probably one of the earliest pieces I'd ever seen as a child. And it was just such an amazing, I didn't see the original. I saw a print of it in an antique store, but it literally stopped me in my tracks because this, mythology and, that whimsical element, magical. I was always interested in that. And I've always naturally been interested in psychology, which surrealism was very much influenced by Freud and psychoanalysis and, the id, the ego, the superego, and, kind of translating these inner workings of the human mind onto canvas. And I've taken that, but I've also applied how we relate to nature, how we see ourselves in nature, even seeing ourselves through the eyes of animals. So I've applied that to my work, but using surrealism as the vehicle to get that across. And getting back to what I was saying before about like the reflection of our world, surrealism allows me to illustrate concepts that are fairly abstract to a lot of people, depending on where you live. I mean, if you live in an area where you're suffering from drought and flood and famine and whatnot, that's a very different reality. But for a lot of people, these concepts, they can't really visualize them, and I can use surrealism to relay that to them, give them a visual, and hopefully inspire them to do something about it then.
Yeah. There's one thing I wanted to mention to you, Amy, is as far as a work of art. When you mentioned, when you mentioned that the Botticelli that just kind of stopped you. I had that experience with Las Meninas by Velázquez, and I got into painting because of that painting. I think because, well, it's an incredible painting, but there's so much philosophy and who's the painter, who are the viewer, what are they looking at? There's so many questions that have been taken up with that. Where a painting just opens up that universe, like you said, with the Venus. One other thing I wanted to mention, because it's actually my favorite graphic novel, and I think it was kind of written for you, and they're translating it, and they're going to make a show out of it on Netflix in June called Sweet Tooth.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's by Jeff LeMieux, a Canadian writer, and the graphic novel, or the series Sweet Tooth, is the best I've ever read. And also, it's I don't want to give anything away, but it is about the environment, it is about animals, and it is about post-apocalyptic.
Okay.
And so that's coming out. So I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah.
And Amy, I swear, I think they kind of wrote it for you. So take a look. Amy Guidry. Amy, I was wondering if you could point the listeners to where to find your work, see them, whether it's physical in person, if that's appropriate or applicable, online.
Yeah. Right now they can see, I have a piece in a group show at Modern Eden Gallery in San Francisco as part of their actual size show, which is going on now through June 5th. In which all the subjects are animal subjects painted at actual size. And then I'll be doing some work for Corey Helford Gallery. That'll be coming up in August. I think that's about all I can share right now about that one. But
and that's a wonderful gallery too.
Yeah, in Los Angeles. And online, you can find my work at amyguidry.com. And also, if you happen to be in Louisiana, just as one of their exhibiting artists, I have work at LeMieux Galleries in New Orleans on Julia Street. So you can always see something of mine there. And I think that's about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. As I mentioned to you, I followed your work for some time, and I personally really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you about it. I've learned a lot, and even in particular, I've been just wondering more about surrealism because it's popped up in the show. But also, just down to it, the earth, right?
Right.
Our use of the earth, which is, a big concept, but it's also probably pretty simple at its basis. So I wanted to thank you for spending the time on the podcast. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and gosh, I can't wait to see what else you create.
Well, thank you so much, Ken. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I really love having these opportunities to explain my work and give people a little more insight, because like you said, it's an important topic, and it's really simple when it comes down to it. We all just need to be aware.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you so much, Ken.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.